It blows my mind that we are spending money that we don't have and passing debts on to future generations. Now, I'm a Republican. I know not everyone here is a self-identified Republican or an independent, but let me share with you one of the reasons I'm a Republican. My party's roots were in the Civil War era, a party that stood against slavery, and I'm proud of those original roots. There have been a number of things that happened since then, but I think we should always look back to that past. Everyone, every man, woman, and child should be entitled to the fruits of their own labor. And when you deny them all the fruits of their labor, you deny them a measure of their freedom. When we're spending all this money we don't have on things we don't need and committing our children and grandchildren's labor to pay off future expenses, ladies and gentlemen, we are in some respects consigning our children and grandchildren to a life of slavery. It's wrong. I believe we're a better people than that, but we need to prove it by changing our policies at the federal level of government. So, these are big stakes here. Yes, sir.
I have several issues to address here. You know, like we're going to talk after you're elected. I've sent you 43 emails, Todd, and you haven't answered one of them.
To what address did you send this, sir?
It's from your card or something.
I sent 2 to your website that never got a reply.
Uh-oh.
We're checking that website. Okay. When did we start checking?
I'm not sure. I probably did maybe 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
It switched over to me.
Okay. Well, we've been
okay, maybe
checking it in the past. We now check it on a regular basis. So, you know, and that was from feedback. I guess we had not gotten feedback until some late date that there was an account out there we weren't checking, which we fixed it. In fact, we'll address any concerns you have today. I mentioned there's a backlog, but okay.
I've been trying to work backwards.
Well, thanks for letting us know that.
Yeah, if you could get it to us, you know, to put on our website. So
you know I've been accessible because I've seen you at other events, but I do feel bad and apologize that you sent us emails. So, yeah.
Okay. Last week we had a little discussion about interposition as a way to combat Obamacare, and you are an attorney, right?
I am an attorney. Doesn't mean I know the answer to all legal questions.
We were a little confused about, you know, whether to pursue interposition or, you know, back the Attorney General's.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, and I have some sense of the Attorney General's position here, which is that it's not one or the other. You can join this suit on grounds of it's inconsistent with the Interstate Commerce Clause to require somebody to purchase health insurance because they're not engaging in commerce. So that's with this current lawsuit's over. The state of Indiana, through the Attorney General, has joined that lawsuit. To me, that seems like a very important thing for our Attorney General to do. But it's his belief that you might be able, if I'm not here to represent the Attorney General, but you might be able to also challenge this on the grounds of interposition. Now, interposition is effectively this idea that if something is inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, because it's inconsistent with the Constitution, the states just don't need to pay attention to it on grounds of the 10th Amendment, right? Because it's a government of enumerated powers, and if that power wasn't delegated, it remains to the states or with the people. So that's interposition. I hope I'm being clear here. And so the question, I actually think you could do parallel tracks, is my reading of it.
Well, I think we were told that you can. That, you know, basically
right?
we'd have to choose whether, you know,
you probably consult
no
that attorney. You know, there's an old saying
that was somebody's opinion that you couldn't do both. That was
okay, and it didn't float. All right.
But I think you might be able to do both. Now, I'll tell you, the doctrine of interposition has not been recognized by federal courts in recent decades. I don't know that they've recognized it. There is some history going back further where the doctrine of interposition was used. I think it was under the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions originally by James Madison and Thomas Jefferson to oppose the Alien and Sedition Act. So there's a little history as to how all this started. but it's not been recognized by the federal court. So I think probably the Attorney General has identified the best grounds to challenge this healthcare legislation, which is because it's inconsistent with the Interstate Commerce Clause and the powers of the federal government under that clause. I don't have much more to say about it. I'd be happy to take a follow-up, but I think I've probably given you my thoughts on it.
Okay, and then one other thing, Japan spends 8% of their gross domestic product on insurance, and my daughter lives there, but she's lived there for 10 years. They have damn good insurance. And it costs Japan 8% of the gross domestic product. In the United States, we are already spending 17% of our gross domestic product for, government payment of health care, and then we're only covering like 47%.
Is it a market-based system over there, or do they engage in rationing?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Why in the hell, couldn't we send a delegation to Japan? How do you guys do it? Figure it out, and then bring it over here, Things like this are not rocket science. I'm largely convinced that the reason that it is out of control is political corruption. A little bit over the years, every year, every time the government touches anything, I've noticed that in my dealings with government, that whenever a pool of money is generated, that the politicians are on it like maggots.
That's why I think to bind the hands of our political class, that's what they've become, unfortunately, we're going to have to pass something like, I hope, a balanced budget amendment that says only a time of war or major natural disaster can you spend more than you bring in, and you only could do that with a 2/3 vote of both houses of Congress. That's an example. I'd be open to different variants of that sort of legislation, but
one of the other big issues that we haven't talked about yet tonight is unions. Would you fight to the death to loosen or lessen the power of unions because of their causing lack of productivity?
I wouldn't subsidize or fight to fight for the growth of unions. Let's put it that way, because we see by people's choice, workers' choice, union membership continues to go down and down and down. I would not feel the need to take some government action to keep that reduction in union membership from going on. People want to be in unions, fine. Go work for a unionized employer. If they don't, then that's fine too. My grandfather was proud of his UAW membership years ago. I'll tell you, my grandfather would be rolling in his grave. We're talking about taking away the secret ballot for union members. That seems to be wrong. And I'll also say that during this down economy, this is card check legislation. You've heard EFCA, the Employee Free Choice Act, something that Barron Hill supports very much. Probably in part for political reasons. We know that unions play a real part in getting out the vote, but there are people of goodwill who are members of unions and very proud of it. And I don't want to offend those people. They're good Americans. They're looking out for their families and their wages and whatnot. But there's a provision in this Employee Free Choice Act legislation that mandates arbitration by the federal government if management and unions can't come to terms. And I think what that's going to do is that's going to create an incentive for them to never come to terms, and whoever controls the White House and the Labor Department is going to dictate favorable arbitration terms to whichever, labor or management. And that's not how government should work. It shouldn't take favorites. So I'm troubled by that.